Hi there. In today's video I'm going to be painting this photograph. Now it's a photograph that I took last week. We were staying in a lovely cottage on a farm and this is the view I saw out of one of the windows of the farmyard. It was absolutely glorious. The weather was lovely. It was March and March in the UK is usually very cold and horrible but it was beautiful. We watched jackdaws making their nests and there were chaffinches and there was this lovely little black cat which reminded me of my cat that I lost a couple of years ago called Minty. So that was lovely. And I just decided it would make a lovely tutorial. So here you go. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to roughly draw in the scene. So in the background we've got a sort of a hill and we've got the one of the farm buildings. It's a cottage or something going on there. There's a wall in front of it and there's a big tree here. Actually it goes off the page. Little indistinguishable in this light. Actually, I looked at this scene at a different time and it was much easier to see what was going on, so that was quite interesting. So there's another wall going on here. There's some kind of store going on here. It's difficult to tell exactly what. It's in quite a lot of shadow, and there is, let's see, that's a wall, and there's a kind of another wall going on here, with a big kind of plant. There's lots of shadows, I'm not going to worry about those too much now. There's another wall there and that wall there. There's some, I think that needs to be flatter. As you can see it's really rough, and then there's a couple of chimneys going on there. Okay, that's actually that same size. Very rough. That's fine. What have I got here? Ultramarine blue, a little bit of cerulean blue, some titanium white. This is aureolin. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's Aureolin. I think that's right. Because I need to replenish my stocks of cadmium yellow, a bit of lemon yellow, some yellow ochre, some red iron oxide, which I've got and I hardly ever use, so I thought I'd use it in this, and some burnt sienna. So with the sky, I'm going to use quite a bit of white, a little bit of the ultramarine, mix it up together. I'm going to just put that in. I'm using my trusty spatula. Somebody told me the correct name for it the other day, which I've completely forgotten, so I'm going to have to chase that up and find out what it is. I'm going to put a little bit of white. I'm going to drop in a little bit of that burnt sienna into this tiny mix, and oops, it's a bit mucky, this burnt sienna. That sort of greys it down without using black because it makes a more interesting colour, and I'm just dropping that in really. Oops, that's quite dark there. Didn't mix that in properly. Let's put a bit more white in. And if you sort of continually mix new shades on your palette, it becomes quite, if you continually mix into, as I'm doing here, you end up with lots of different colours in your sky. And let's check what's going on down there. And that makes it just more interesting to look at. And don't, I always say this, don't faff around too much. I've started faffing around, you see, and I'm sort of losing it. So let's just put that in there. Right, I'm going to leave that because I think that probably will need a bit of work, she says, doing it already. I really like a square-ended palette knife. So I'm going to I'm going to tackle these trees because they're a bit weird, these trees. It's quite dark, but actually I'm going to lighten it a little. That's it. That's a bit of mix of both yellows and a bit of the ultramarine. And I'm literally going to very roughly, and now I'm going to sort of start mixing it more colours. Again, the reason for this is you get that different depth of colour happening. So let's just put that in. That's gone quite blue, so let's put more yellow in. And there is shade on one side of this tree, so that's what I've just done there. And then there's a lighter green going on here. Let's just mix a tiny bit of brown into there. I'm going to do that down here actually. That's gone far too dark. Take a little bit, mix that in. Again, oh gosh, that's tinting that really strongly, so I'm just going to mix it up here. That's better. That's better. So that's taken away that blueness, because I don't want too much of that blueness going on, and I want to get some of that brighter green on the other side. A bit too much, I think. Let's get some of that in. So it goes off. There's the line of my tape, so it does go off the top, and then there's another tree behind it which is actually darker, so let's just pop that in just really roughly for now. We may need to go over that. It's a fat little tree actually, so let's make it fatter. There we go. I'm going to now put in that line in the on the hill. I'm not sure what it is. It could be a hedgerow. It's difficult to tell. So I'll mix up a little bit more paint. What happens if I put some of that in? Well, that makes an interesting colour, doesn't it? Sort of a, oh gosh, I don't know what you'd call that. This may be tricky with a palette knife, but I'm just going to put it in really quick. Quite a bright green field going on. I want to make sure that is nice and bright. I'm just running this palette knife through. Might be time for a change of tool actually. Right, and that goes right down to the wall. So in it goes. And the nice thing about making all this quite rough and not worrying too much about smoothing it out, if you like, is because you just get more interest into the painting. Now there's a slightly less green, it's not green at all actually, it's more browny colour vegetation going up here, so I'm just putting that in right now. Now I want to tackle, I'm going to try tackling this thing here, this wall, and I've just mixed a little bit of that green, which is the wrong idea, into the white mix there that I had. That's it. Added some yellow ochre. Probably needs to be even whiter than that, and even whiter than that. So I'm just dragging a little bit in, and look, I've got quite a nice colour going on there. I'm just popping that in roughly, and it's very similar to the foreground, so I'm just going to put that in there. I'm going to mix a little bit more white, not completely together, just to get that variation again. And doesn't go as far up. We've got lots of shadow going on here, and we've got quite a grey looking wall, which I'm going to create with that browny mix I've got here. Pop that in up there. It's different, it's darker, it's more shadowy really, I would say. So that's mixed, that's it, that's looking better. So you can see I'm just finding the colours on my palette, they're all there. It's just about finding them, and if you keep mixing so that your colours change just a little bit, you get this lovely variation in colour, which is more natural. You know, there are shadows on that wall, I think there's vegetation growing there. So very simple marks. A little bit of dark going in here. It's not that dark, but anyway. And I think there's quite a bluish sort of shadow going on here. So I'm going to mix blue with the burnt sienna. See what I get here. Blue and brown always make gorgeous. It just makes just such a gorgeous colour. It's actually now quite brown, so let's mix some more blue. Gosh, it's going to make a gorgeous colour, I can tell now. So if I add that, a little bit of white to that, you'll start seeing, I'm going to have to put some more white out, aren't I? This is ridiculous. You'll start to see a lovely, lovely bluey grey. So I'm just going to roughly draw in some shadows, and this is really rough. You know, I'm not copying the photograph because you know it's not going to work, is it? But you will get the impression of shadows. Now I need some of that lighter colour up here actually. Just get that in. So we're almost starting to lose the feeling of what's going on. So hopefully we're going to get that back. But again, I'm going to get some really rough, because this is now shadows of trees up here that I haven't painted in yet. So let's just, I'll put a darker one in. Was that a good idea? Probably not. So let's dull that down. So we've got this this wall, which kind of doesn't really look much like a wall, but let's just get this greenery in, this very, very acid green ferny type bush thing that's going on there. And there's some dark colour there, there's some dark going across here. My palette knife's in the way. My palette is in the way, I should say. And again, let's just fill that area in. So mix in a bit of that blue into there, makes it a nice little grey colour. And again, really simply pop that in. Really simply. Let's get a little variation in the colour. And I'm going to put a bit more yellow into that, I think. And get a bit of, again, variation in what's going on. Okay, let's tackle this roof. It's a funny sort of colour actually. You kind of think a roof's a particular colour, but it's very pale, sort of, kind of, oh gosh, pale, sort of, it's a sort of a very warm grey, I think, really. That's what I'd probably call it. Tricky one to find out. I'm going to have to move my palette out of the way, sorry folks, to put this in. Right, that's probably too dark. Put some more white out to lighten it. Let's get that in again. It's too dark, far too dark, and there we go. And then quite a white side of the house. I'm going to do that with this one. So just a few, maybe a little bit darker than that actually. Sort of more like that, I would say. And like, oops, I'm not too worried about that. And then we've got a sort of a, let's put this in because I'm going to have to use a brush for this because it's just going to be impossible to do it with a palette knife. And so I'm putting in the, right, this is where I'm being sort of accurate, not that accurate, but sort of a bit more accurate than I normally am, because otherwise it's just going to look weird. So I'm just putting in a couple of chimneys, mixing up this browny colour to get this edge of the roof. I don't like doing it with I don't like doing it with that. Oh dear. I'm a lost cause. let's do it with this. And then moving the palette again, like that. And a little bit of shadow over here. Let's get that in, more blue, get the shadow back. And something green going on there. Some trees. And a very dark, I'm carrying everything now, let's put that there. A very dark, using that last bit of brown, bit of blue. I don't want it to be too brown, I want it to be more bluey brown. Goodness me, that is, I'm going to need to get some more blue. So, and then that is the, I've got to move my palette again. That's the wall. Okay, so back in the right place, hopefully. This has got to come out a bit more, so let's move that out a bit more. Also needs to be a little bit, I think, a little bit thicker. So we want more layers. Now that was quite yellow on that side, so let's not lose that. And by sort of mixing and changing the direction of your marks, you're getting a sort of, oops, wrong colour, wrong blue. Get some of that brown in there. You're getting some interest and depth in the tree, because it's a huge tree. Okay, let's mix a bit of the dark colour with some, let's use that, see what that does. Wow, that's a very strong tinting colour. Very strong. I think that's a golden, which is probably why it's so strong. But wow, what a lovely colour that makes. Right, let's just get that in. It's much darker. Quite like that. That's fine. And I want to get some dark in the foreground there. Just let's get that in darker there. Let's get a nice bit of colour in there. It's not quite, it's too grey, let's get rid of that. That's the shadow underneath that thing. That's the side of the wall which I haven't got. This is where it starts to get very kind of, what's the word? Well, it's very loose, isn't it? That's the word. Let's get some dark green going on here. Let's get that darker up here. That needs to be dark, come on. I don't really want the paper showing through. And so I don't want any white showing through here. So I'm just being quite careful about a few marks just to sort of change the dynamic. Now there's a big elephant in the room here, and that is the tree. Because I don't quite, it's just branches, it's not foliage. I'm just putting in the sides of this, I think it's some sort of wood store or something, I don't really know, but it's very rough. Maybe a little bit whiter, lighter. Oh dear, that's not very good. So, let's go back to That's a bit too light. And then there's quite a dark area going on here. There are some sort of funny little things going on. There's a little bucket, I think, that's yellow. Let's see if we can just draw that in. Just a little bucket, and I don't know what's going on in that wood store thing, but that's far too light. Let's put a bit of detail in, very rough detail, and then I want to get that. That's very light as well. Is it that light? No, it isn't. Like I said, we've got to address the elephant in the room, and that's the tree. So I'm just going to draw it in, to be honest, very roughly through the paint, just to give the sense of lots of branches. And then I'm going to, it's almost black, I'm just going to really gently mark in what you could say was sort of what you could say it was sort of beginnings of a tree. I don't know. We can use a pencil, but I think it might be too wet for a pencil. Yeah, it's too wet for a pencil. So I'm going to leave it like that. And let's see, am I happy with all of that? I think this is a little bit too dark, so I'm going to lighten it up. And that will make it look kind of more interesting, actually. And smooth that out a bit. And then, because of that, I need to make that look as though it's in front of the building. There's a couple of funny little, and this is getting quite detailed now, so maybe I should just stop, but there are a couple of funny little wooden things going on in the roof, which aren't going in right now. That didn't work. And then, yeah, so there's a very light green thing going on here, which I'll put that in, and a little bit of something going on here. It's very, you know, very rough. I'm not worrying too much about the details. Let's get that in. Let's get rid of that white paint. And finally, get a little bit more paint in the sky. It's quite tricky because I've got a lot going on now. There we go. Okay. I think I'm quite happy with that. I'm absolutely covered in paint. It's very loose. I want to just darken down I want to do something a bit better with my chimneys because I think they look terrible. So, just going to put a line in here, a line in there. chimney pot. That looks a bit better. Okay, I'm moving this out of the way and I'm going to, my hands are clean enough, I'm going to take the tape off and show you what it looks like. So here's the farmyard. I think it looks fun. It reminds me a little bit of the place that I was at, and it was great fun to paint, and that's always the best thing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, that really helps my channel. Share it with a friend or several friends, share it with your art group. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It really helps the channel and it helps me to carry on making videos for you. So, bye for now.